prepare yourself. This isn't merely the full moon you've anticipated, a celestial event marked on calendars and awaited with casual curiosity. No, this is the one that has been patiently, subtly, meticulously waiting for you. Landing precisely on April 1st for many and April 2nd for others, its arrival coincides with a day notoriously dedicated to jest and irreverence. What cosmic irony, then, that out of all possible moments, it chooses to unfurl its luminous presence when humanity is perhaps least inclined to take anything seriously. Yet, there's a profound, almost sacred reason why this specific moment resonates differently, and why the quiet, deliberate actions you undertake before its peak eclipse the moon's brilliance itself. This rare celestial alignment offers a genuine window for proper preparation, an opportunity that will slip through your fingers if not seized early, because the true unfolding of this moon's influence doesn't begin on the night of its fullest glow. It has, in fact, already commenced. This very instant, this stretch of time that most might casually dismiss as another unremarkable, quiet day, is in reality the most pivotal phase of all. The moon doesn't suddenly ignite with its full power. Its energy begins to gather, to build, to ripple, days before its visible manifestation. This subtle preamble is precisely where most individuals miss its profound call entirely, lulled by the absence of overt urgency. Yet, it is in this unassuming stillness that you are meant to prepare, to engage in specific, often overlooked rituals before its full arrival. To delay, to wait until its radiant orb dominates the night sky, is to tragically miss the very essence of what truly matters. For weeks, perhaps even months, an unconscious internal process has been unfolding within countless minds. You've been engaging in elaborate, intricate conversations solely within the confines of your own head dialogues that never quite materialize in the tangible world. You replay past interactions, meticulously adjust your words, conjure alternate scenarios, imagine perfect retorts or profound confessions, and then you say nothing at all. This silent, meticulous editing is precisely where this particular moon begins to exert its gentle yet insistent pressure. It doesn't demand grandiose gestures or life-altering pronouncements from you. Its call is far more delicate, far simpler, and it is this very simplicity that causes so many to overlook its profound significance. You are being asked to articulate a thing you've been silently refining. Not an exhaustive exposé, not an emotional explosion, but a singular utterance that is real, undeniably clear, and unvarnished in its honesty. It might be a simple clarification, a minor correction to something that has felt subtly misaligned, or a truth you've consciously withheld, believing it easier to allow it to remain unspoken. The insidious truth is that what remains unspoken doesn't merely vanish, it ferments. It builds a quiet, insidious pressure in the hidden chambers of your psyche. It subtly yet fundamentally alters the way you present yourself to the world, often without your conscious awareness. And the moment you choose to articulate something you've held captive, even in the most unassuming manner, an immediate, profound shift occurs. This transformation doesn't manifest externally at first, it originates deep within. A pristine clarity descends, a sense of inner resolution, as if a perpetual mental loop has, at long last, found its graceful conclusion. Most will regrettably bypass this initial, crucial step, deeming it too simplistic to hold any real weight. Yet, this is one of those precise pivot points where the trajectory of your life begins to move in profoundly different directions, directly connecting to a subsequent step that almost no one is truly willing to embrace. This exchange is not concerned with achieving a superficial sense of equality or placid peace. Instead, it invites a rigorous assessment, a clear-eyed discernment of what genuinely holds value in your life, and what has, perhaps imperceptibly, ceased to serve its purpose. You must carve out a quiet moment, Then commit to paper one singular thing you genuinely desire. Not a sprawling list of 10 aspirations, but one like a profound yearning, something that resonates with the deepest chambers of your being. And then, with unflinching honesty, directly beside it, you must articulate what you are authentically willing to release in order to attain it. Not what sounds noble, not what feels facile to declare, but something truly visceral. It might manifest as a deeply ingrained habit that has subtly, persistently held you captive. Perhaps a familiar dynamic you continue to participate in, despite an inner knowing that it is fundamentally misaligned. Or even a cherished, yet now ill-fitting version of yourself that once offered comfort, but now constricts your growth. This is where the majority of individuals recoil, for they crave the desired outcome, yet shrink from the discomfort of naming its necessary cost. Everyone yearns for the novelty of something new, but remarkably few possess the courage to consciously create the necessary space for its arrival. This is not some external negotiation or cosmic bargain. It is a profound internal covenant you forge with your own soul. It serves as an unequivocal signal, a declaration of your earnest commitment, demonstrating that you are serious enough to let go, not merely to accumulate more atop what already exists. There exists a very specific type of moment, one that rarely graces our lives, but when it does, its presence is felt with an immediate, unmistakable resonance. It isn't shocking or chaotic, nor is it surprising in the dramatic fashion people often anticipate. It is something else entirely. It's that fleeting instant when an event unfolds, and instead of reacting with surprise, you find yourself catching your breath, a quiet thought echoing in your mind. This feels familiar, not because you presciently predicted its arrival, but because it carries the distinct imprint of something that was always, inevitably, going to transpire in precisely this manner. This is the profound, almost fated energy that this pink full moon radiates. Its essence is not about arbitrary occurrences or abrupt disruptions. It is about the graceful, almost predetermined unfolding of events, where conversations land with an eerie precision, as if scripted long ago. Realizations strike with piercing clarity at the exact juncture when they can no longer be conveniently ignored. Certain situations reach their natural, undeniable culmination, not because an external force abruptly halted them, but because they have, in their own silent wisdom, reached their organic, inevitable conclusion. This is where the term biblical begins to acquire a richer, more nuanced meaning. Not as a harbinger of chaos, not as something overtly dramatic or overwhelmingly destructive, but as a descriptor of the truly inevitable. For when something is genuinely destined to occur, it carries no hurried urgency, no random capriciousness. It unfolds with an almost divine precision, a symphony of interconnectedness that reveals it was already in motion, deeply ingrained in the fabric of existence, long before you ever consciously registered its stirring. Some profound transformations do not happen suddenly. They arrive with impeccable timing, exactly when their delay is no longer sustainable. This is the truth this moon illuminates, not the sudden appearance of entirely new paths, but the undeniable, unignorable clarity of existing paths that have been subtly building, gathering momentum in the background. You begin to perceive how disparate threads have been quietly weaving themselves together, connecting in ways previously unseen. And now, with astonishing precision, all the pieces begin to coalesce, forming a picture almost too perfect to disregard. This intricate alignment explains why some will experience an unexpected, profound sense of calm during this period, even amidst significant shifts. Deep within, it simply doesn't feel wrong. It feels like something intrinsically right is, at long last, clicking into its destined place. And if you persist in navigating these moments on autopilot, mindlessly going through the motions, you will tragically miss the very juncture where your conscious participation, your authentic voice, could have truly shaped its unfolding. This is the silent trap where many become ensnared, often without ever recognizing it. They approach every full moon with the same ingrained patterns, performing identical rituals, writing down similar aspirations, yet perpetually waiting for an elusive feeling of difference, for some kind of definitive shift, a sudden clarity, a palpable movement. And inevitably, nothing truly changes. Not because the cosmic timing is flawed, nor because the lunar energy is absent, but because their approach remains rigidly identical, cycle after cycle. And this, precisely, is the uncomfortable truth that almost no one speaks of. You cannot truly step into something new, into a new dimension of being, while simultaneously operating within the exact same, unchallenged patterns. It matters not how many rituals you dutifully perform, how many intentions you meticulously commit to paper, or how fervently you declare your desire for change. If your internal operating system remains locked in the same automatic loop, you are merely repeating the same cycle, perhaps with slightly different words, but leading to the same destination. The core issue isn't that nothing is happening, it's that you are moving in the same familiar way within its unfolding. This is why the most overlooked, yet profoundly powerful, ritual preceding this pink full moon isn't about the act of adding anything new to your life, nor is it about striving to do more. It is instead about the deliberate, conscious act of interrupting. What has become automatic? What has been rendered unconscious? Most people simply don't grasp the sheer predictability of their daily existence, the same knee-jerk reactions, the identical habits, the familiar grooves of thought, the habitual ways they navigate recurring situations. This becomes so ingrained, so utterly familiar, that it feels inherently normal. Yet, this very familiarity acts as an invisible anchor, keeping everything rigidly in place. And then they wonder, with a touch of bewilderment, why nothing ever truly shifts. This moon calls you to break this spell. Here, you are invited to do something profoundly different, not in some dramatic, attention-grabbing fashion, but in a quiet, profoundly conscious way. You catch yourself in that micro moment where you would instinctively respond automatically. And then you don't. You pause. You choose differently. You take a deliberate, almost imperceptible step, slightly outside of the well-worn pattern. It could be something utterly minuscule, the nuanced way you choose to respond to a comment, the novel approach you take to a situation you typically avoid, or the conscious decision to truly inhabit a moment that would ordinarily flit by unnoticed. But that small, conscious interruption holds more power than almost anything else, because the instant you break free from autopilot, even in the slightest degree, you create an inviolable space, an opening for something genuinely new to enter your experience. You don't necessarily need an entirely new path to materialize. You simply need to cease unconsciously treading the same one. And this, precisely, is what this moon profoundly responds to. Not mechanical repetition, not rote routine, but heightened, deliberate awareness. Every dream is possible by taking the first step. Once you've decided to take it, the universe will help you. But first, you got to take the first step. This wisdom serves as a potent reminder. So many of us wait for the right moment, the perfect feeling, the unmistakable sign. But the truth this moon underscores is that nothing truly begins until you initiate movement. Clarity doesn't always precede action. Often, it is born from it. And that powerful concept that forces begin to align and support you once you make a definitive decision is less about mystical magic and more about the inexorable power of momentum. Once you step forward, everything around that decision begins to organize itself in support. But that pivotal organization only commences after that initial courageous move. We truly appreciate this invaluable reminder. There is a profound, underlying reason why this specific full moon has, throughout history, been inextricably linked to early spring. a connection that runs far deeper than conventional understanding suggests. On the superficial level, it celebrates the joyous return of light, the vibrant resurgence of growth, the delicate blossoming of life after long months of silent stillness. Yet, historically, this wasn't merely perceived as a seasonal shift. It was understood as something infinitely more meaningful, a cosmic awakening. Because what truly imbues the return of light with its potent power is not the light itself, but the profound period of quietude that preceded it. For an extended duration, everything appears dormant, hushed. Nothing overtly seems to be happening. Progress feels agonizingly slow, often even invisible. You may be moving, taking steps, yet it feels as though you are leading nowhere discernible. And in this liminal space, most people erroneously assume that nothing is truly changing. But this has never been the truth. There are intrinsic phases where things simply do not yet reveal themselves, where profound movement unfolds beneath the surface, where crucial realizations are quietly forming, gestating, but have not yet fully emerged into view. And then a moment arrives. A specific, undeniable juncture where it can no longer remain hidden. This pink full moon sits precisely at that pivotal point. It embodies that same ancient pattern, a prolonged stretch where clarity felt elusive, followed by an undeniable moment where something becomes so obvious, so self-evident, that it is utterly impossible to ignore. Not because it materialized suddenly from thin air, but because it is, at long last, ready to be seen. Nothing truly appears out of nowhere. It reveals itself only when you are finally poised, finally capable to recognize its inherent truth. This is why this particular moon doesn't feel like a raw beginning. It feels like a profound return, like something that was always intrinsically there is now, with breathtaking clarity, coming back into precise focus. And when you perceive it through this nuanced lens, the idea of this being biblical begins to acquire an even more profound significance. Because if you scrutinize those transformative moments recorded in history or law, they rarely erupted from pure chaos. Instead, they invariably emerged after extended periods of silence, of patient waiting, or of profound uncertainty. And then, without dramatic noise or a perceptible build-up, something subtly, fundamentally shifted in a way that irrevocably altered everything moving forward. Not with a cataclysmic bang, not all at once, but with an undeniable, quiet authority. This moon carries that very same energy. It isn't coercing you into some entirely new trajectory. Rather, it is gently, yet firmly, guiding you back to something that already possessed inherent direction, something that was already subtly forming, something that was simply awaiting the precise, right moment to become utterly clear. And when that crystal clarity finally arrives, it doesn't beg for your attention, it effortlessly commands you. Because once you behold something in that state of undeniable truth, you no longer need to convince yourself. You needn't analyze it endlessly, dissecting it over and over again. You simply, unequivocally know. True clarity feels profoundly different. It doesn't require repetition to solidify its meaning. And this, precisely, is what distinguishes this particular moment from everything that preceded it. When people encounter something described as biblical, their immediate mental image often conjures intensity. They anticipate disruption, something cacophonous, overwhelmingly dramatic, a force that compels change in a manner utterly impossible to ignore. This is the ingrained image most carry. Yet, upon closer examination, the most defining, world-altering moments rarely unfolded in such a fashion. They weren't always tumultuous storms. They weren't always theatrical spectacles. In fact, some of the most pivotal shifts transpired in moments that were almost eerily quiet, profoundly still, yet carried an unparalleled level of clarity that transformed everything in their wake. And this, precisely, is what renders this pink full moon so uniquely powerful, for there is no chaos tethered to its arrival. There is no confusion, no emotional overload, no unsettling sense of things spiraling out of control. Instead, what it ushers in is something far more direct, and for many, profoundly more uncomfortable, a pristine, undeniable clarity. And clarity of this caliber doesn't require loudness to exert its immense power. In fact, the inverse is often true. The quieter its manifestation, the more impossible it becomes to evade its penetrating gaze. Chaos can be rationalized, dismissed, or simply ignored. Clarity, however, cannot. This is the crucial distinction for which most people remain woefully unprepared. Because when things are engulfed in chaos, you can readily invent justifications. You can label it as temporary, assert that things are simply unclear, or conveniently decide you'll figure it out later. Chaos, in its very nature, provides ample room for delay, for evasion. But when something crystallizes with such profound clarity, devoid of confusion, stripped of emotional noise, unencumbered by any distraction whatsoever, there is absolutely nowhere left to hide. You see things precisely as they are. You comprehend, without the slightest hesitation or second-guessing, what demands your immediate attention. And it is in this stark, unvarnished seeing that true power resides, not in forcing change, but in the elegant removal of everything that had, until now, obscured your vision in the first place. This is why some will experience this moment as a profound wave of relief. Because issues that once felt labyrinthine and complicated suddenly present themselves with elegant simplicity. Decisions that once felt impossibly heavy now feel unequivocally obvious. It is as if some unnecessary, cumbersome layer has been gracefully stripped away. Simultaneously, however, others will experience a distinct, quiet pressure, not because any external event is dramatically unfolding, but because they are now confronted with a truth they can no longer conveniently ignore. Clarity, in its essence, does not create pressure. It merely removes the comfortable excuses that once made delay seem like the path of least resistance. And once you arrive at that unvarnished point, a profound shift unfolds naturally, inevitably. You no longer require external motivation. You don't need to tirelessly convince yourself of the next step. You don't need to embark on an arduous search for what comes next. You already, unequivocally, know. And that, precisely, is what imbues this full moon with a power that most people simply do not expect. It doesn't overwhelm you with an intensity designed to jolt. Instead, it bestows upon you something far more precise, an utterly clear view. Most people are inherently looking in the wrong place when this kind of transformative moment arrives. They anticipate something glaringly obvious, something monumentally significant enough to immediately seize their attention, a clear, unambiguous signal announcing that something profoundly important is transpiring. But this pink full moon operates on a far more subtle yet potent frequency. It doesn't illuminate the loudest cacophony in your life. It doesn't direct your gaze towards the most dramatic, emotionally charged situation. Instead, it gently, precisely draws your attention to something far smaller, something you would, under normal circumstances, overlook without a second thought. And this is precisely why it holds such immense weight, because there are certain moments that, when they occur, appear utterly inconsequential, almost trivial. Yet, later, in retrospect, you realize they were the exact, almost imperceptible pivot points where something fundamental began to shift. A brief conversation that felt entirely casual at the time, yet lingers in your mind longer than expected. A minor decision you made quickly, without overthinking, that ultimately leads you down an entirely specific, unforeseen path. A fleeting moment where you almost acted differently, only to find yourself pondering it again and again later on. This is the precise kind of subtle revelation this moon highlights, not the grand, obvious turning points, but the quiet, unassuming ones. What appeared insignificant was, in reality, anything but. The profound importance of this lies in the fact that these small, delicate moments often carry more precise direction, more potent guidance, than their larger, more bombastic counterparts. Grand events, by their very nature, tend to overwhelm. They scatter your focus in myriad directions, rendering it profoundly difficult to discern what truly matters within their tumultuous wake. But small moments are inherently precise. They are clean, distilled, potent. This is where everything begins to shift, in a way that most people simply don't expect. Because this pink full moon doesn't feel like a peak in the conventional sense. It doesn't feel like the definitive climactic moment where all threads converge and something reaches its absolute, complete culmination. It feels, instead, far more like a setup, like an intricate arrangement is being orchestrated, pieces meticulously positioned, aligned in a manner that isn't fully obvious, yet, but which will, in time, make perfect, undeniable sense. And this, crucially, demands a different kind of awareness. Because if your gaze is solely fixed on immediate, tangible results, you will undoubtedly miss the profound, silent drama that is actually unfolding here. This is not about instant outcomes, it is about foundational groundwork. Things are being placed precisely where they need to be. Certain profound realizations are arriving with impeccable timing. Subtle yet powerful internal shifts are occurring, so that when the next phase of your journey truly begins, you are already perfectly in position, without ever having to force anything into being. What feels murky or unclear now is, more often than not, meticulous preparation, not confusion. This is the critical distinction that most people fail to make. They erroneously assume that if something isn't fully resolved, if it doesn't make complete, immediate sense, or if they don't behold the entire picture instantaneously, then nothing of consequence is truly happening. But in actuality, this is precisely where the most vital foundational work is taking place. Because when something is being built with true integrity and precision, you rarely glimpse its final majestic form right away. You perceive fragments. You see pieces. You encounter moments that don't yet connect into a cohesive whole, but they most certainly will. This is precisely why this moon feels so distinct. It isn't dramatically closing a chapter with a resounding flourish. Instead, it is quietly, intentionally, and meticulously setting the stage for what is destined to come next. And if you are truly paying attention, you will begin to notice that certain things you are observing now no longer feel random or coincidental. They feel as if they are precisely pointing forward, as if they are integral components of something larger, something that has not yet fully revealed itself. The present moment doesn't always explain itself. More often, it meticulously prepares you for what lies ahead. That is the pervasive energy here. And if you are still here, still watching, still listening to these words, know that I truly, deeply appreciate you. This is, after all, how these profound shifts usually begin, not with something loud and demanding, but with something quiet, persistent, and resonant that simply stays with you. So, as this pink full moon gracefully approaches, do not feel the urgent pressure to rush into anything or to force any outcome into premature existence. You absolutely do not need to achieve perfection in every detail, and you most certainly don't need to overcomplicate its profound message. Simply pay attention to what is already becoming clear, to what is naturally resolving itself. Because when things align with this level of precision, when something begins to make profound sense without a trace of confusion, you are already further ahead on your path than you even realize. Whatever this moment is subtly showing you, trust with unwavering faith that it is arriving at the exact, perfect time. And if you choose to move with its gentle, guiding current rather than resisting it, You might just be profoundly surprised by how naturally, how elegantly, everything begins to fall into its rightful destined place.